be informal and fun, but there's one piece of business that has to be taken care of beforehand.
Okay.
You get a mic? Yeah, hang on.
Point it out a little bit. That much will help.
Yeah. He gets a mic.
Are we sitting in the front chairs?
You sit where we want. If you have a question, I will come to you with a mic. You can ask the question, but I'm going to hang on to the mic just because we're trying to be safe. All right. Other than that, everybody, Mike McFarlane.
Hey guys.
Everybody.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Okay, so who wants to go first? 1, 2, 3.
Mike,
Yep.
how did you get in the role for Dragon Ball Z when you got the Master Roshi? Just like the process was different. I've heard different stories for each people that have gotten it.
Like how was I cast?
Like, because I've heard different stories, like with Sabat and Shimon, how they got it, like the whole bank story, how they used to go to like a bank to do the audition. Like, I was just curious about your story on how you got to Master Roshi.
I was in the very first round of casting that they did locally. Funimation has always been based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area somewhere. They've moved around 2 or 3 times, but they've always been in that area. The first, let me get this phone out of my pocket. There we go. It was digging into my leg. The first go-round, they had that Canadian cast, which they continued to work through other means to continue their version of Dragon Ball. But at some point, Funimation was like, I'm not sure why we're here, and we go way up here to record and bring everything back to here when we could just do it here. They weren't aware at the time that the Dallas-Fort Worth area is one of the top 3 or 4 areas in the United States for commercial and industrial acting. So like a lot of people are full-time actors and do theater and whatever else there as well. So they had a round of auditions, and I was involved with that round of auditions. They heard a few hundred people, and I was one of about 12 that they picked this mask is falling, to be part of the first round of recording they did, and that was for a movie called Sleeping Princess and the Devil's Castle. It was a Dragon Ball special. Just regular old Dragon Ball with no extra Z's or GT's or S's or anything at the end of it. And from that, I was cast as Count Lucifer, who's obviously a good guy. He's totally a good guy. Someone called Army Commander, which is the person that's on the front cover of the VHS box. You've ever seen this big red dude. And then Master Roshi, same session. So they kept me from that into all the other Master Roshi recordings, thankfully, which is pretty cool. But yes, at Funimation, at that point, old school Funimation was in a bank building, one of the tenants that would lease out an office space or whatever in part of a huge building that someone else owned. And they went from one corner and one story to having a big corner and a second story to having second and fourth story to this building's no longer big enough, let's go get into a bigger building. So that was the gist of it. Prior to that, I'd still done a lot of acting, improv, theater, film, voice work, whatever else. So luckily I was trained and ready to go for my audition.
Okay, 2 questions.
Yep.
What was your best experience playing Havoc and Fullmetal Alchemist? And
Okay.
2, since you're the voice of Ojiro, what are your thoughts on the ship between Ojiro and Hagakure?
Okay, let's see. The first one with Havoc. I'm not sure of a best moment. I enjoy playing Havoc just because Havoc is pretty close to my speaking voice. Like, it's just some variation of what you're hearing right now. Maybe different intensity, maybe slightly higher, something of that nature, but it's not super charactery like Buggy or Roshi or something like that, where it's far, far away from my normal speaking voice. So that's fun. It's also, and I've got a few characters that are like that. It's also, that's like a little bit more, let's see, what's the word to say it? Or what the best word to use to say it, describe it. Because it's so close to the way I sound, sometimes it feels a bit more vulnerable, if that makes sense. Like, it's much closer to doing on stage or on camera acting in that what it sounds, what is coming into the microphone out of my mouth sounds like this. And so when this voice says something, it might hit me different than when this voice does something. You know, like that's obviously out of left field sort of thing. So Havoc is one of the more vulnerable characters, and so anything that happened with him, it struck nerves and heartstrings and such. Same with Amon from Tokyo Ghoul, and Jean Kirstein from Attack on Titan, characters like that. As far as that particular ship goes, that seems fine, man. I'm not going to diss on any ships. Ships make shows fun. And especially if it's One Piece, you got to have the ships, otherwise we can't get to the other islands. Hey-oh, ships. Dad jokes left and right.
Hello?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm all right.
I was just wondering, what's your favorite part of being a voice actor, and do you have a favorite moment from voice acting?
Okay, I heard, sorry.
What's your favorite part of being a voice actor?
Okay.
Do you have a favorite moment from voice acting?
Thank you so much. My favorite part of being a voice actor is that there are far fewer restrictions on what someone could decide to cast me as versus if I'm in a play or I'm in a commercial or I'm on film or anything of that nature, because it's all about what I can do to express emotion and be truthful and those sorts of things with just my voice. So, you know, I might get to play someone that physically looks like Jabba the Hutt, or I might get to play someone that's like a little microscopic sprite, or I might get to play someone that's, you know, a winged octopus devil Cthulhu creature. All of these sorts of things that I, as me in the vessel that I have, would not necessarily get to play. So I think the cool part of that voice acting is I get a chance to do anything as long as I am convincing at it. So if they, you know, want me to play any of those things, as long as my audition's good and the director likes what I'm doing, whatever, then I got a shot at it versus someone like, well, that guy looks a lot more like a lumberjack and he's got the lumberjack look and he's big and whatever else, so he should be the lumberjack. I'm like, I get it, because you're going to show him on camera, on screen or something. So there's a believability factor. But when something's drawn and brought to life via a voice or whatever, then it's just up to me to be able to prove whether or not that sounds like the real deal. And I think that that's a fun, cool thing. And what was the second part? It was
Your favorite moment?
Favorite moment from voice acting? I don't know. Getting to do it the very first time was fun. In those earlier sessions, they also had me do, you know, like I said, they only hired about 12 people, so that particular Dragon Ball thing was like, you know, me playing those 3 characters plus probably 5 or 6 randos in the background that, you know, meet a quick fate of, you know, being beat up or something. So getting to experiment with all of those, being hit repeatedly, falling off a cliff type noises, being set on fire, any of that kind of stuff was like, we're gonna do that. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we are. I mean, that's what you hired me for, so I'm gonna do it. So getting to just jump into it that way was a lot of fun. And continuing to do that all the time is part of what makes it, you know, that part might be one of my favorite parts of continuing to do it, is the continued fun challenge of, okay, now you're gonna do this. Now you're gonna, like, you're a soldier and you're running and you yell grenade, but you're also on fire while you're doing that, and you jump off this cliff to safety, but it turns out not to be for safety because it's a long way down, and we need you to do that 10 different ways so that it doesn't sound repeatedly every time the guy playing the game or whoever's playing the game does this particular move, and it's not just over and over again. It needs to sound different every time. So those things are kind of fun. Just all the cool variety.
Just a follow-up on that.
Yeah.
When you're doing stuff like that, when you're doing multiple takes, do you have any like specific techniques or tricks or anything to keep it fresh every take?
No. I try to keep in mind, like, because of the amount of time I've been doing this sort of work and all those sorts of things, I have to trust my instincts because they allow me to continue to keep getting cast and keep getting work. So I know that they work in some capacity. So someone else likes my first or second or third take of something. So I have to trust that, like, okay, my trained skills and my experience of doing this have taught me when they want this, and this is what I see on page, it's going to be something like this. So I'm not going to stray night and day different from that, because different for the sake of just completely different might take away from what it is you're trying to do. So if it is someone getting shot, if it is someone else like that, I'm not going to go from like a, to, oh, that hurts. You know, like, it's not like, you know, like if they don't want a funny game, I'm not going to throw out a funny version of some guy getting shot in the chest. It just needs to be variations of how else could that sound? You know, the things that you hold out when you do these sorts of things are all vowels. Let's try an E sound. Let's try an O sound. Let's try a different percussive sound up top, so it can be like a K sound or a T sound. Or, you know, if I'm going to slide into it, I could do an S sound or something like, you know, like all these sorts of things that I could try. And I don't even sit there and, like, you know, play with the alphabet in my head. It's just already all, like, ready to go at any given time where I can just try different things to see what works.
In that respect, you're a bit of a composer doing variations of a theme.
Yes, it is absolutely variations of a theme.
Okay, next. We're going to go here. I'm going to hit through the middle. I'm not going to exclude you, but I want everybody to give a chance to. Alrighty.
We'll get some more round ones in.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
Good. As a child, my introduction to Dragon Ball was Bardock, father of Goku.
Okay.
And I believe you played Tora in that.
I did.
Yes, and you know, as a kid, my first introduction was like, oh man, this Tora guy is so cool, and then he dies immediately.
He sure does.
So one of my questions is, would you like to see a resurgence of some characters who maybe not are more popular, but they have some sort of fan culture within them, or some sort of cult classic? Would you like to see that more?
I mean, if there's more story to tell, sure, cool. I wouldn't want to just do it for the sake of, like, hey, look, there's Tora. Hi, everybody. And then you never see him again, you know, just to bring him back for the sake of doing so. But there's characters like that, like, I got to voice a character that I thought had such a cool look and had a neat voice. It was the first time I got to do, like, some sort of, like, super creepy voice for that kind of work. It's a character named Pui Pui. And Pui Pui just looks neat. Looks like one of the H.R. Giger or Geiger, however you'd like to pronounce the name, one of the aliens.
I had a Pui Pui action figure.
Yeah, and they had a Pui Pui action figure too, so I'm like, sweet. You know, that was one of the first action figures, besides Roshi, that I had for something that I'd worked on. But I think that was like maybe a 3 or 4 episode arc character, and then bye-bye forever. Like, Pui Pui's never come back. I think Pui Pui's neat, and I wish that there was more Pui Pui. So some characters seem like they have a lot more story to tell, a lot more development that could happen, and some don't. You know, I've played a whole lot of, as I described earlier, people who meet with horrific fates in one way or another. I don't know enough about them to say, hey, I wish I had more of them, because they served their storytelling purpose of, like, you know, running in to save someone else and taking a bullet for a character that you are used to. So.
Hey, you, alright, okay.
So I had a question about Dragon Ball or Z or Super, any of the variations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite story arc in it, story-wise, like as a viewer? And then do you have a favorite that you like to do the voice for, and are they different or the same?
For Dragon Ball, the answer for a long time was like the Android Saga leading into the Cell Saga. I like that little arc of Dragon Ball Z best. I just think that there's a lot of development that happens there and a lot of cool character introduction, and some kid characters become a little older and then they're more interesting, or they're interesting in a different way, you know. I like that saga. But I also have to add that I think the Tournament of Power in Super is also a really cool arc. I think it goes on for a long time, but I think it's neat, like, we're gonna do multiple universes and multiple dimensions of universes and stuff like that fighting each other, so it's neat to have, like, a whole lot more foes out of nowhere, all at the same time, quickly. So, I think that's neat. The second part was a favorite to act in of that? Is that what you were asking? With that in mind, I guess like that, because for a long time, Roshi, in Dragon Ball, he was the mentor and he was training, but he was also, you know, he had his naughty side and whatever else going on. That carried on for a long time. In Super, they tried to very much like, let's do other things with him besides that. So his big fight moment in Super was a neat thing to act on, because they had taken that aspect and made it very a minimal aspect of his personality, and brought it back to the mentor and training, and you saw all these things that he could do to maintain and hold his own around a whole bunch of superpowered aliens and just insanely tough opponents from everywhere, and he as a human being, and an elderly human being, is able to go in there and hold his own. And all of the speech and dialogue that he did through that, how close he came to no longer being among us before being saved, etc., etc., those were all fun moments to work with. So that's one in recent memory anyway.
Who's your favorite character you've ever voiced?
Favorite character I've ever voiced? I don't know if I have an answer to that. I don't want to have the, you know, go-to handbook actor answer of like, you know, they're all my children and I love them equally. Because as I was just mentioning before, some of them I don't know at all, so I don't love them equally. I don't love a person who just goes, "Rah!" and dies as much as Master Roshi, because I've got to work on Master Roshi for like 23 years. And that guy worked on for 4 seconds at most. So I don't know them as well. I will say that Master Roshi is probably the most fun. That's the most fun character that I've got to work with and work on. There are others that are rewarding in different ways. I was mentioning earlier that some of them that are closer to my speaking voice, it just feels a bit more vulnerable and whatever else. So there's a lot of those roles, like Jean Kirstein and from Attack on Titan, and Amon from Tokyo Ghoul and things like that, that are rewarding in other ways, where it almost feels like I'm in a film or I'm in a play or something like that and getting to act in that capacity. And for whatever reason, like I said, it just feels a lot more like more emotions are tweaking around inside the head and inside the heart when it just sounds like me, for whatever reason. I still put my all into it no matter what, but when I hear it that way, it just affects me differently.
Who's a character you would like to voice act?
Who's the character I'd like to voice? I would like... I'll just throw out Dreamcasting. I would like to voice any new character in Star Wars. That'd be fun. I would like to voice any new character in Star Trek. So any sort of animated thing like that. Just big franchises of things that I've liked since I was little. I'd love to do something in Marvel. I've been fortunate enough to do some adaptive script writing and stuff like that for a couple of Marvel shows. And it's really cool to be sitting there writing stuff and getting to go like, you know, group, blah, 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 Hail Hydra, Hail Hydra, Hail Hydra. Like, that's just a really cool feeling. But getting to voice something like that in some property like that, I think would be a ton of fun. But really just, you know, I like working. I never know what the cool next thing is because, you know, I'm not out on the pulse of everything. So I just like to work, and I think working's fun. And I like to be creative and be around other creative people. That's just my thing.
Actually, a bit of a follow-up to that.
Yeah.
Having the experience doing the voice acting, when you're writing, when you write, do you do things where you're like, okay, this would be something that would be easier for me to do if I was voicing it, or do you write for people in mind if you can do it?
I never write for me. like if I'm not that character or I'm not in this show, I don't write it with me in mind. I always write it with the characters that I see on screen and what the creator is of the characters is trying to do storytelling wise and character wise. If it's an existing show, like if I needed to come in and write some Dragon Ball stuff, I know Sabbath as Vegeta can talk about this fast and he likes to snarl on these types of words and whatever else, so I might lean into that, knowing that, but I'm also not going to deviate from whatever it is that the creative team behind the writing aspect of it before it gets to me, before I adapt it. I'm not going to change what they have in mind just because I have some insight as far as the actor goes. I still want to get across the message that Akira Toriyama is doing with the manga. So.
Just to let you guys know, there is going to be bleed from that. It's something that hopefully we'll have fixed by next year.
It's all good.
Tell you what, I promise I might come back. I'm coming to you right afterwards.
Yeah, my question is the difference from you doing the voice acting compared to doing your voice direction when you're voice directing something.
Okay. Well, they are related, but they're two different gigs entirely. The only thing that I think comparatively that helps is I do think it helps for you to be an ADR director if you've already done a reasonable amount of ADR acting. Like if that's what you were brought in to do, then you know what's expected, you know when limits are being pushed, you know when you need to take breaks, you know you need all of these things that maybe someone who's newer to it maybe feel apprehensive to ask for. They don't want to be a troublemaker and they don't want to seem like someone who is high maintenance when they come into work. No one wants to be like that. So you're able to help out people who are newer if you've already done the gig and you know what is and what is not expected and what is may or may not be going through their minds as they're trying to do the job. When I go into act, I can't turn director brain completely off, but I try to make sure that that is not you. You are not directing. Please be respectful to whoever is. Please give them everything that they ask for. If it seems like something's not working or they're having a hard time with something, you can throw in a suggestion because you're experienced, but you're not the director. They're the director. So if they're like, no, I don't want to take that, you must respect that and let them do the job that they were hired to do so that they can continue to excel and make their vision come true. So. Yeah.
Is there a character that you really wanted but just didn't get to do?
Let's see. The money answer would be all of them, so that I can continue to be hired and be paid for something. The emotional answer, I don't know. There have been a few things where I felt like I really connected while the audition was going on, either via me recording it in my own home and sending the files in, or me going in to talk to a director and them telling me what they want and going through the motions and trying to come up with a voice and a performance that suits what they're asking for. And it seems like there was a connection or something going on and then didn't get cast for it. I don't know how all these things work with different people. There's nothing where I can say definitively I wish that I was All Might or anything like that. I of course auditioned for All Might, but I also think that Sabbath's great. So for the most part, whoever I see that gets cast in something, it's the right person for the gig at that particular moment by that particular director with all of these circumstances, and it's a good pick. So I don't want to, I don't let it enter my mind that way of it should have been me or I that sort of thing. But generically, I when I go to bat, I go to make a home run every single time. And if I don't, that's okay because I'm still going to go up and swing again. I don't have a quick pick answer for you though. Like I wish it'd been Iron Man or something like that. Like I don't have a story like that. So, but that's also part of who I am, and it's also part of like doing this job and continuing to be able to keep doing it. Because if you set yourself up for I really want a thing and don't get it, then it's soul crushing repeatedly because you're much more likely statistically to not book something than you are. So there could be hundreds of people reading for the one thing, and you could be really good. You could be, you could be the most experienced, the most whatever on it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be you. So you have to keep in mind each thing that, despite doing your best and despite all things, it may not be you. And I am at peace with that. I know that it's not always going to be me, so I try to move on and go on to the next thing. But that's also how I stay sane.
That's me, the old baseball metaphor about you can fail 70% of the time and still be a Hall of Famer.
This is correct.
I'm gonna go back in this corner.
How long does it take for you to like film an episode of something?
Let's see. If it's full on like on-camera filming things, it really depends on what kind of show it is. If it's an ADR thing, like if I'm going to record an episode of, say, like Attack on Titan or something that I'm the voice director on, the generic average answer would be, like 20 hours. So that's why when we're doing this sort of broadcast dubbing thing, where we're dubbing new stuff and the expectation is to get one done a week, we can generally do 2 shows at a time at a full-time pace. Because even 20 would be like, that's a very talky episode. Sometimes it's as little as like 10 or 11, 12 hours worth of recording to do. Then you have to review it, you have to mix it, and you have to research it and cast it beforehand, so there's other time involved as well. So all the time gets used up. But I would say generically 20-ish hours is on the upper end of average per episode.
Hands, please.
What is your process of creating a voice for a character?
It's pretty simple. Like, I wish that I had a big, long, detailed thing, but for the most part, I would say 80% of the time when I'm auditioning for something, they're really detailed with what they give you when they want you to audition. So they're going to send you, the generic term for it is sides or materials or whatever. Here's your audition materials. And let's say that it's way back in the day and I'm auditioning for Master Roshi. There's going to be 1 or up to about 4 or 5 pictures of Master Roshi doing various things that help you see what kind of character this is. It could be, watching Bulma in a not necessarily best, most respectful way. It could be him doing a big martial arts blast. It could be him chilling out in the sun at the Kame house. You just see different things where you're like, oh, okay, this tells me a little bit of story about what type of character he is. And then there's going to be a paragraph of like, Master Roshi is a martial arts master, he is etc. And it's like, 5-6 sentences of content. And then there's going to be some lines of dialogue where they're going to give you some context out to the side, like calling out to his students Goku and Krillin while training, or fighting an alien beast trying to save the planet, heat of the battle sort of situation. And it's going to have like that level of context for each thing that you see and or read for. And that helps you to fill in the blanks of like, well, how am I supposed to read this? You're supposed to be able to take that information and decide, and then just do it. When you're in the booth and you're being directed, they might say, bigger, softer, that's too big, or that's way too quote-unquote cartoony, we want to bring it a little bit back more to realism or something. But as far as coming up with a voice for a character, it's, what's the description like? What's the age range? Where are they from? What do they look like if possible? in some instances when it's like a video game and they're still designing it and they, you can't get pictures of the game yet because it's still being, crunched away. It might have like, tough and rugged hero person, and it'll have a picture of like, 4 or 5 on-camera action stars. And it might have like a, as far as environment, it might have like some pictures of Lord of the Rings, or it might have some pictures from some war film or something, where you're like, oh, okay, it's this tough and rugged, type of character, this sort of environment, this age range, where is he from, is an accent important, like, are we doing that? Are we doing like, the history of my family is from this place, but I'm an American, and I have a generic American accent, or how are we going to do this? Those things all come into play. So, thankfully, it's not just completely out of thin air. They give you a whole bunch of ingredients to work with for you to produce whatever you think your batch of character voice could sound like.
So with your history of Dragon Ball, you've been kind of all over it in all of the sagas. You were Android 8 and regular Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Master Roshi and Yajirobe and all throughout the series, the Super. But then when we got the GT, you were the voice of Baby.
Yep.
And throughout most of the fans' minds, at least in past years, Baby seems to be a character or a saga with some stigma to it. Even though, for me personally, I feel like there's been no difference in your performance with him compared to Roshi or 8 or anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you, maybe based off like the story, was there a way you'd like written the character better, or have any opinions on that at all?
I don't have any opinions on that. I know of the stigma of GT overall. I didn't know necessarily there was a stigma on that particular arc or that particular character. But it doesn't surprise me because fandom is going to fandom. I think anything short of Akira Toriyama wrote it from beginning to end is probably not going to satisfy a particular percentage of fandom. And that's all there is to it. As far as the voice or the character or the performance or whatever else, I don't know. I mean, I did what I was told, and they kept it.
What was your favorite series to direct, and then what is the hardest scene you've ever directed?
I don't know if I have a favorite series. I'm very fortunate that I have several, and I'm not trying to once again do like the lame actor answer as I am with the director answer, like they're all my babies and I love them equal. That's not true. But I can't pick one. Like I do have several that I think are amazing. Like I love working on Attack on Titan. I love working on One Piece for completely different reasons. I love Mushishi for completely different reasons. Tokyo Ghoul for completely different reasons. I've been fortunate to work on a bunch of cool stuff that I love for various reasons. And so it's, not just difficult, it's impossible for me to pick the favorite. And then it was a difficult scene. Stuff that was hard in my memory that I can think of, the end of season 1 of Tokyo Ghoul, when we have Kaneki being tortured repeatedly. That on both of the performance of both those characters was very, very gritty and raw and went on for a really long time. Kaneki was tortured horrifically for a really long time. And Austin Tyndall did great at that, and Sabat did great at his varying levels of being how crazy he was, So that one was physically daunting. I think the amount of screaming that both of them had to do was very headache-inducing and rough on the throat. And I hate that that happened for either of them at all, but I also know even if we have to take it in little bitty doses at a time, I'd rather it sound real and raw rather than, oh, that hurts. Like, that just sounds so fake if you're going to reduce it to that, because it's, it's like, it's not as stressful in the voice or in my mind. Like, I get it, but also, like, that's inadequate. That's not going to work. Like, that doesn't help us tell this story. So both of them are troopers, and I appreciate them. And I do remember that stuff being very difficult. There's some also lots and lots of difficult emotional and physical stuff in Attack on Titan, and that's something that's still ongoing. So I can't even pick one out of that. There's a bunch. Yeah, lots of people get eaten.
So, if you could cosplay any of your characters you voice, which one would you choose?
Let's see. I would probably pick, let's see. There's a few that I would pick. I like the My Hero outfits, so I could either pick the school uniform or the gi for Ojiro. I think that's a cool look. I think the uniforms in Full Metal are cool, so I'd like the military uniform for Havoc. I also think that the Attack on Titan uniforms are super cool with all of the gear work and the swords and the ODM gear and stuff. That's a cool look too, and I'd love that. I don't know how restrictive it would be, or I'd feel like I'm walking around with 20 belts all over me, but I think it looks cool. And as far as like extravagant cool, I think Kane from Trinity Blood also had like a ridiculously well done outfit. The character designs and clothing designs in that show are insane. They're so good. And I would love to have something that intricate, only for the chance to wear it and look at it and be like, okay, I've had it on 10 minutes, it's too hot, please take it off. But I would love to have like pictures taken in it at some point, just because it's so elaborate and beautiful.
A question.
Yeah.
As a voice actor, who are some of your favorite people to work with? And then as a director, who are some of your favorite people to work with? And is that the same group of people?
I'm lucky in that most people are good to work with, and most people are fun to work with. And director-wise, it's the same thing. Like, I don't have tons and tons of like bad experiences to chalk up of like, I'll never work with that person again. I've been very fortunate. I don't have a list of I'll never work with that person again. So, but just to throw some names out for the sake of doing so, directors I like working with, I love working with Colleen Klinkenbeard. I love working with Caitlin Glass. I love working with Anthony Bowling. I've loved working with Michael Center Nicholas and Stephanie Shea. I've got to work with them a couple of times. There's a lot of really good ADR directors. Actors, that same group of people, because they all happen to be great actors as well. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn is a great actor. I got to work with her a couple of times. Monica Rial. There's just a ton of people that do really, really good, solid work that are a joy to work with.
How did you get into voice acting?
I got into voice acting, I guess my interest would have been as a small child watching animated series, as I'm sure a lot of people are, yeah. But as far as the training and stuff, I started doing acting in one capacity or another in elementary school, and it went to the wayside for music for a long time, and then got brought back like toward the end of high school and going into college, and I started to study it a lot more then. And the voice aspect of it, I think I took voice and diction when I was in college, and was just kind of, I appreciated the challenge of, I need you to do all of this with just voice. Like, granted, I can see you, like if you're doing a speech or whatever, I can watch you doing the speech, but this needs to be powerful with my eyes shut, and I need to hear all the emotion and the intensity, everything with just the voice. And I thought that was a cool, fun challenge, and it led into other cool auditions and stuff. You know, I think the first voice stuff that I ever booked was industrial work, like, you know, the new Canon XL17 camera could do these many wonderful things, and here's a list of stuff that I'm reading. And this is the thing that you're gonna watch when you buy the product, so you know how it works, like that kind of stuff. Or, you know, Bank of America ads or beer ads and stuff like that. Those all, while not necessarily character work, you are someone that fits into that world whenever you're talking about that stuff, even if you're pushing a brand, you know? But as far as like specific voice acting for character work and stuff like that, that was characters were then... I got hired by a radio station, but I think I was already working with Funimation at that point, but I got hired by a radio station to be like random fake callers for fun, or other people that worked at the radio station for fun. You know, like fake employees, like, oh, there's troublesome Daryl over there who always comes in wrecking up the place and things like just weird stuff like that. And that came from my improv background. I've done a lot of improv over the years. I haven't in quite some time, but I probably had a good 10 to 15 years of being on stage anywhere from 1 to 4 times a week doing improv shows, where I was like, I need a suggestion, thank you for that. The scene starts right now and I've had no time to think about it, but I'm going to do it because that's my gig. And that like quick level of I must decide and be at peace with my decision has helped a lot in the voice work world, where I'll go in and I'll audition for something, or like, hey, we brought you in for this, we'd like you to read for this other thing. Look it over, like, cool, I'm ready, and we just start. Like, because you don't always have a lot of time. And that level of immediacy and confidence in your decision making is appreciated. So hopefully the answer was in there somewhere. Sure.
You've mentioned decision making a
Yep.
lot. Could you elaborate? I mean, obviously everybody makes decisions,
Yeah.
but decision making as an actor.
Well, decision making as an actor, it allows you, what I'm basically talking about is the ability to not be so much in your head and just to do things. To do the things like if this was not a script and this was not a scenario, the same way that you would get up, the things you would do in the morning, you would take whatever medications that you need to take throughout, for your 1-a-day pill. Are you going to shower this morning, or are you going to work out? Are you going to make breakfast? Are you going to pick breakfast up on the way to work? You got to work today? What do you got to do? All of the things that you already know that are part of the decision-making process. I think it helps to implement that sort of mind set and process to acting. So instead of getting a script and going like, obviously questions are good and having some context is good, but if you go like, look at something like, I don't understand why this happens, and what time of day is it, and have they already eaten lunch, and like, all of these sorts of questions are hang-ups for you not just doing the thing. So if you can allow yourself the freedom to decide and to do the thing, you're going to find that the more you do that, you're going to feel better about it, and you're going to make more and more good decisions. Because even if at first or somewhere along the way, or even in years into doing it, because I still do it, you make a bad decision and you crash, burn, do horribly, the first thing you're going to learn is like, however embarrassing, however bad that felt, it did not kill you. It was not the end of your career. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So all the things that you've built up, like, oh, I can survive that. You can. It's not the worst thing to be bad at a thing when you know in general that you can go up and do well. If you strike out sometimes, it doesn't mean you're a bad ball player, and you have to remember that. I can keep making these sorts of weird analogies over and over, but that's the extent of what I'm talking about as far as like making decisions, is to like look at something, look what's presented to you, or hear what's asked of you, and decide immediately what it is you're going to do. I've got an idea, and rather than like take your idea and like, well, I have that idea, but I also have these 3 other ideas, and I'm not sure which one's the best idea. Decide now, and pick one of those things, and then do it. And they will let you know, the person who hired you or who is going to hire you will let you know if they want to see or do anything else. But the confidence to pick something, pick a decision, make a decision, go forward with it is a huge plus. That's what I mean.
We can go over here. Because it's closer. We can go over there in a minute.
And I think we got time for a couple more, and then we have a photo op thing. So if any of you guys want professional photos, we're doing that from like 1:50 to 2 o'clock in that next room over that way.
1:50 to 2? Okay.
How did you come to voice Ritsu Soma?
How did I come to voice Ritsu? That was a choice in the casting by Justin Cook, who directed the first season. Justin knows that I have the capacity to have a pretty broad range in what I can offer tonally as a voice actor. This thing keeps falling down. So sorry, guys. And that once again, like he likes even way back then. He likes to respect my decision making. So I could go in there and he's like, I would like it this, this, and this. And I'm like,
on the main stage,
this?
we will be having an Irish dancing demonstration.
And then he goes crazy.
I know that
And just go all over the place with that.
but we will be having Irish dancing
he liked what that was all about. He liked my approach to it.
Stage. Stop on over.
So the audition was
Rochester Academy of Irish
come in,
Thank you.
and we're going to try to record this for like 30 minutes. And if he likes what we did, great, and we'll book more time. And if not, I'm going to pay you for this time that you were here, and we'll continue casting. And there's no hard feelings because it means I'm going to get something else some other time, some other way. So that was the audition process. There wasn't a Ritsu audition side, but like I read for Kyo, I read for all of the other major parts in that show, and it started up. I'm like, I guess I'm not going to be in that one. Oh well. And then I was introduced to this cool character later. I'm like, well, that's neat. Ritsu's a great character. Limited time on screen, but really cool character. So you never knew.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
Back to creating the voices for the characters.
Uh-huh.
Is it hard to remember which character it is, or like the new character that you want to voice? Is it like hard to remember the voice for it?
Yeah, it would be for sure. For things like Master Roshi, I don't need like what's called a reference anymore. I can go in and I know that voice. Like I know what's going to happen with that voice and how it sounds. If it's a new character, like when Colleen cast me in My Hero Academia as Ojiro, she would bring me in, like, here's the audition of things that you did that I based your casting on. Here's the parts that I like. Let's start recording. Whenever we start recording and she makes her selections, she will tell the engineer, and I do the same thing when I'm directing, hey, that line was great. Can you put that in a reference pile or a reference folder? So this is Mike/Ojiro reference folder. And anytime Mike comes back in, especially if it's been a couple of weeks, because Ojiro is not in every episode, either she will ask for, or I will say, can I hear my reference? And that super helps me out. Like, oh, okay, it sits in this part of my voice, and now I can see the character on screen, and that's helpful too. And I can see how he interacts with other people, and that's helpful too. But they keep a reference, audio reference, and it's usually multiple things. It's not just one line. Like, it could be a pile of 5 to 10 things that are all going to help you get back into character and back into voice. So it would be, except that we take the precautions so that it's not.
Okay, he's got to go take pictures, so
Sure.
we're going to call it a, let's just say a wrap, because that's a nice way.
It's a wrap for now, yeah.
Yeah.
And
everybody, go take pictures with him. Have fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you to our moderator. And thank you to you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, the picture's going to be like 10 minutes, and they'll be back at my booth at like 2 o'clock. I'm leaving a little early today, so I'll be there until about 3:45-ish. So if you want to come by and say hi or whatever, with the exception of me getting a drink or something like that, I'll be over there, and I'd love to hang out with you a bit. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
And I hope that the extra was informative. Good.
Yeah, that's one of the things I would people to read a little smarter. If that makes sense.
It does make sense.